On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain.
So I'll cherish the old rugged cross.
I wandered so aimless, life filled with sin. I will never.
I've always been a fan, so looking forward to seeing something new.
In the night, praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow.
I know, I'm always excited to see a Kevin Smith movie that Kevin Smith wrote. I'm excited to see something he wasn't restricted by studios to make. And I'm excited to see this method of distribution.
Are you going to stick around for the Q&A?
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you do get to ask Kevin a question, what would you ask?
I don't think about that.
Are you familiar with his new method of production and distribution?
Just what he talked about Sundance.
Okay.
And then what he set up on the website.
Do you know, what would you think of pros and cons of that kind of method of distribution?
I kind of like it, you know, it gets them out there, we don't spend all the money on advertising, gets it to the fans where it needs to go.
Definitely. Can you think of any cons about it?
You know, not as many houses, harder to see them, a little bit higher prices, but you know what, on the bid.
All right, awesome. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
It would have to be a relationship question, because I love Jen. So, I don't know, just how Jen keeps her cool. Like, how can she put up with all this baloney?
I saw the light. Go!
It's a horror movie, and I'm a horror head, and the fact that my favorite writer-director is doing a horror movie, I'm ecstatic. I brought extra towels just to bring up the clean, just to clean up when that movie starts.
Praise the Lord, I saw the light. Can you feel him shine on you? Can you feel him shine, shine, shine?
I let it stew for a long time. Like, this stewed for about a year in my head before I put pen to paper, so to speak. I sit there and play with it for a while in the head, just build it, because I hate doing like second, third drafts. I like to kind of pre-write it so that when I sit down, it's just a matter of letting it fall out onto the page, and then I kind of go back over the scene and trim within the scene while I'm writing, and then leave it alone, because I don't want to like write a draft and then read it and then go back and do another draft. I kind of revise while I write, revise, revise. So it helps to let it germinate, stew for a while, and then it also helps to kind of, I mean, for me at least, to write and revise. Let me see. I went to the Vancouver Film School, and I was in British Columbia, and I ran into the ad in the Village Voice newspaper in New York, but we got it down at the store in Jersey. And it was an ad for the Vancouver Film School I see every week in the paper, and it had a 1-800 number. You can call it up. And finally one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to call it up. I called it up only because I thought that Vancouver was Vermont. So I was like, it's close, you know? And so I called up and I sent in a package, got in and stuff. And I remember looking at the envelope they sent and it had a very odd zip code with letters in it. And I was just like, wow, it's so weird. Vermont is so off the chart. And then when I figured out it was fucking Canada, I was like, oh my God, I can't go on. That's the first. Yeah, it was huge. It was far away. I've never really left home that far at that point. Like, it was just a very uncharacteristic move for me to fucking jump out to the film school. But I was like, you know what? They accepted me. I'll go do it. Now, this was a program that accepts everybody. You know, it felt good. When I got the acceptance letter, it was like, they could see the talent, even though I didn't do anything. But when I got there, I realized they just take everybody. So at film school, I met a lot of Canadian instructors who would try to tell me what various filmmakers were saying with their work. One of the teachers showed us Silence of the Lambs, which I'd seen a bunch, and then tried to kind of break it down and explain what Jonathan Demme was trying to do and say with Silence of the Lambs. And I was sitting in that class going, this motherfucker's never met Jonathan Demme in his life. He ain't Jonathan Demme. You don't know what Jonathan Demme's thing. And his take on this movie is about as valid as my take on this movie. And I don't know Jonathan Demme either. So why am I listening to this guy? At the end of the day, I realized that, we're just watching movies. I was doing that at home. Why am I paying for this? What I came to school for is get my hands on some equipment, meet some like-minded individuals, get a little bit of education, bring it back to my friends who knew nothing back home, let's make a movie. I just learned how. So while I was there, they said, no theory, no theory. First 4 months, all fucking theory. All we did was talk and watch movies. I'm like, I want to make a movie. That's why I came, get my hands on the equipment. Good thing happened there. I met Scott Mosier and I met David Klein. And those are the two dudes who would help me make my movie, even though I left 4 months into the program. It was an 8-month program as a tech program. You don't get a degree, you get a certificate that says you're finished. That's it. So I was supposed to go for 8 months. I went for 4, dropped out. Scott and David stayed for the rest of the time. And that was the valuable investment of film school, was meeting those two cats. Because, I mean, I've been working with them for almost 20 fucking years at that point. The shit at film school, there was no fun. We didn't have a dorm. I rented a room in a house in Vancouver. I lived there with 2 other fucking dudes. The first apartment that I rented had a lot of cockroaches in it. And I was like, I can't deal with this. So I went and rented a room from some dude named George. Lived off 12th Street in Vancouver on the other side of Cambridge Bridge. And I remember I sat down in his house and he was like, so what do you want to know about the place? I was like, do you have bugs? I just come from a place with lots of bugs. He's like, no. I was like, you sure you don't have roaches, man? Because I saw roaches in Canada. And he goes, we don't have them. I was like, all right, I'll live here. So I lived there, and I would walk to school. I got a bus pass. You could buy a bus pass for $25. But I was a big Laserdisc fan, and I'd rather spend $25 on a Laserdisc. So I started walking instead, screwed the bus pass. So I lost a shit ton of weight. Never put that together until later in life. But I was able to buy a few more Laserdiscs while I was out there. They were like a primitive form of the DVD, much bigger. It looked like a record. The record is like a primitive form. Let me see. I walked a lot. I remember that. Vancouver has the most fucking gorgeous hookers walking the streets at 8, 9 in the morning. I was not a hooker guy, but I'd see them all the time because I walked and shit. And I'd see these beautiful girls standing out, well dressed, at 9 in the morning. It took me a while to fucking piece it together. And I was like, oh my God, they're hookers. And I remember one day I stopped and talked to one. And I said, hey man, you want to go out to eat with me? And she was like, $50. I was like, not like that. I said, I was thinking I wanted to interview you because I go to film school and I want to interview for a documentary. I think it'd be kind of interesting to talk to you. She's like, why? And I was like, because you got a job. And she wasn't interested in that. And I was like, okay. She was just like, you don't want to fuck? And I was like, no, I just want to talk. And I creeped her out. So I remember that happened once. And I remember, what else? I remember going to Scott Mosier's house. Because I spent a lot of time by myself in Vancouver watching Laserdisc. And once Scott invited me over to watch the Oscars, we had just met or something like that. And I met his sister, and I wound up dating his sister later on. It was good. It was a good time film school, but it was quick, 4 months. I got a lot accomplished in 4 months, and then I lit off. I was just like, I'd rather save my tuition. It was $9,000 for 8 months, and I was, if I left at the halfway mark, I could get half my tuition back. So I was just like, all right. We're coming close to the halfway mark. I'm not enjoying what I'm getting out of this. I've met these 2 cats who are going to be incredible resources, but other than that, I don't think I need to stay anymore. So I took off and I took the rest of my tuition with me and I put that money into Clerks. First scene I wrote for Clerks, I wrote while I was in film school, sitting in in that room in that house that I rented, and it was Randall on the counter talking about, I don't appreciate your ruse, man. That was the first thing I wrote. It was in Vancouver. And I started writing it the day that I realized I was dropping out of film school. I was like, if I'm going to drop out of film school, I got to have something to show for all this time, so I might as well start writing that movie, which I was calling Inconvenience at that point. And so, boom, it started there. And off I went. It was a worthwhile experience overall and whatnot. Years later, I went and did one of these, like a Q&A kind of thing in Vancouver. We were out there shooting Catch and Release that I was an actor in. And while I was there, before we left, I was like, I'm going to have a Q&A. And we had it, I think it was Commodore Ballroom. It was really great Q&A. But in any event, somebody from the Vancouver Film School showed up, like an administrator. And they were like, we just wanted to, we feel like you've done a lot, you've come far in your career, so we just want to make sure that you got your certificate of completion. And they gave me a framed certificate for the course that I never finished, and I was like, yeah. Spirituality. Oh my God, people need spirituality. You know what I'm saying? They don't need religion all the time. That's the problem, of course. Once it gets organized, then good idea becomes crap. But they need spirituality, man, because it's not just about, like, the man in the sky or the woman in the earth or fucking the dude on another planet or something like that. It's that thing that, like, makes you feel okay about the fact that, like, there are moments in life where we're just utterly fucking alone in this world. Utterly alone. And I'm surrounded by a support team of incredible people, but there are moments you have to face all by yourself. And sometimes the only other person you have there is a fictional character that you've been telling yourself exists since you were a child, because that's what you were raised to believe. And since it costs nothing to believe that, I continue to believe it. You know what I'm saying? And it comforts me in quiet moments. And sometimes we need that kind of comfort in life, you know, where it's just like, everything's going to be okay. I get on a plane, I say an Our Father, and I say an act of contrition, and I say that as we take off and before it lands. Yeah, man, cut while you shoot. I don't know how many different ways I could say this. I'm a huge fan of Avid's a sponsor of the tour because I love Avid. I've been cutting on Avid since '96. Scott Mosier learned the Avid. He went to a 2-day Avid course, and this was new tech back then, very new tech. And he was going to cut Chasing Amy. We only had 9 days scheduled in the edit bay to cut it. So we're sitting there in the first 2 hours of the first day in the editing room, and Scott is riding the fucking controller. He's riding he's got the mouse here and he's using the keyboard. We'd only cut on six-plate Steam decks prior to that, actually cutting film and stuff. So here's Mosier cutting digitally for the first time, and I'm sitting behind him, like kind of riding shotgun over his shoulder. And you guys, I don't know if you edit or not, but it's impossible to watch somebody else edit. It's like watching somebody else play a video game. Right. So I sat there for a while, and I was just like, you know, you should move that thing over, dude. That's too many frames. Like, go back like 5 frames. Go back, just give me that. Is this how you do it? What do you press? This? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That looks better. Yeah, do that. And a few minutes later, I was like, oh, give me that. And he'd do it again. And finally, I was just like, let me just sit here, dude, and just tell me, like, if I have a question, just tell me. He was like, okay. And I started, from that moment forward, I couldn't leave it alone. I love editing. It's my favorite part of filmmaking. I don't like directing that much, because I'm not very useful in the directing department. I like writing very much, and I like editing very much, because I am good at those things. So, like, you can actually cut the movie while you're making the movie. And while you do that, you can see if you're missing shit. And you can see if shit works, and if it plays. Now, this is no fucking, like, revelation. Most people have an editor who's cutting the movie while they're shooting the movie, but as the editor, you'd always have to wait until the end of the show, because I couldn't direct and edit as well. But suddenly I was like, I should direct and edit as well, because editing is going to make me a better director, because essentially I could sit there and capture anything that I didn't grab by going through the edit. Like, I would sit there, cut together a scene. Clerks 2, man. First scene with Jay and Silent Bob sucked. We shot it, and it just laid there. It just wasn't good. It was overly talky. It sounded more like me than the characters and shit. And I put it together, and I watched it that night, and I was like, this sucks, man. I knew that scene wasn't going to work. What do we do? And then I was like, you know what? We're there. Like, we're still at movies. I'm going to go down and reshoot the scene tomorrow morning. So I wrote a new scene, went down the next morning, I was like, listen, before we do this over here, I got to grab a quick close-up on Jay, just run dialogue and shit. And boom, we did the scene. And that only came from cutting while I was shooting. And the whole time I was working on Clerks 2, I was cutting the whole time. Like, basically, I'd direct, and as soon as we talk about the next shot, and set it up and whatnot, and they want to do the lighting and shit, I would go next to this motel, we had the Avid there, and I would just sit there and cut all the time. So they're like, we're going to go watch dailies at lunch. It was great, man. I'll fucking go with you. And like, whoa, 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 whoa. No actors, only keys. I was like, you fucking shitting me? I'm no actor. They're like, we know. But I was like, but I'm a filmmaker, man. I know what you're talking. I can watch dailies. I know how to watch dailies. And like, no actors. And that to me was counterproductive and stupid. You know what I'm saying? You could show all those people their work, and you would have gotten more work out. Right. But somebody had told Susanna, like, oh, never show the actors their dailies, man. Because, you know, every once in a while there's some cats that react like, I don't like that take, don't use that. But it's a discussion. You change it out or something like that. Or change it for the moment, and then when they're out of the room, put it back to right. But you know, it doesn't have to be a constant fucking struggle, I guess is what I'm getting at. Was I getting at that? What was I just saying? I got lost in the middle of my own fucking story. Showing them the movie was incredibly helpful, and I urge you to do that, man, because they're seeing it come to life. It's no longer theoretical, it's concrete. You're literally showing them their movie, and when you do that, you're going to get tons of good work out of people.
Awesome.
Do that. Cut wire shoot. We got it.